Welcome everybody to our webinar today with Andrea Bednar, a dear friend and an amazing person. And I'm excited you'll get to see some of what she will share tonight for you. Tonight's topic is wanna be productive while getting stuff done. The inspiration for this really is our lives have kind of gotten shaken up. Some people's more than others, and oftentimes the same things that we usually normally do to get the same results don't really work so much anymore. And we'll get more into that later, but this is kind of what inspired this topic of what are the things that we could talk about that we could all relate to, because it's something that we're all sort of going through. And one of them, honestly, is just how do we become productive and satisfied with our everyday, which again falls into wellness. So a little bit about us. For those of you who are familiar with JUARA, hello, and thanks for coming, thanks for joining. And for those of you who are new to us, a little bit of background real quick and why we're here. We are beauty, we're a skincare and wellness line, and we have launched these wellness webinars right as we started. We were talking about how can we be more than beauty. It's not just skin deep, it's a whole mind and body situation. And so we started launching these webinars really to speak to that whole mind situation and everything else that's so much a part of beauty. Because like when we're stressed, we ain't so beautiful. So a little bit more, let's see, move about us. We are inspired, our line is inspired by an Indonesian Jamu tradition. So that's like the Ayurveda of Indonesia. It's interesting how I'll appropriate the name of another, you know, how Ayurveda is to India. We actually are also quite a large country with 260 million people in it. And we've also had our own herbal tradition for 2,000 years, which focuses on wellness. So how appropriate, we focus more about just strengthening our own immunity, our own health, physical and mental. And so, of course, we are about holistic wellness, which is mind and body. And a lot of it is about nourishment. And nourishment is not just preventing ailments, but also enjoying the experience of self-care or self-health care, and also having deep social connections. That's one of the things we focus on. So you'll see that our webinars are quite interactive, and we want to engage with you too, because that connection is actually important. And we believe in mindful rituals. So we believe in being inspired and just adding meaning to our daily lives and routines just to have a little more peace and happiness. So why are we doing these webinars? It's nourishing the hearts and minds part. Our skincare is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie, the stuff that goes on our bodies, check it out. But really, what goes on us is just as important as the hearts and minds. So these webinars are to connect the community. It's to connect to all you all. And because social distancing is really, it's physical distancing, but it's not emotional distancing at all. And it shouldn't be. And being on virtual platforms actually means, you know, time, space, we're all a phone call away or a video call away. We want to offer valuable content too, especially in these times, actually all times, but it's really straight talking. There's no BS, and our resources who come on these webinars are primo in their game. So we want to share that with you. And ultimately, this is also a peer-to-peer platform for presenters. If you or any of you know of someone who is an expert at something or who has something to share or a value that other people can gain and learn from, and may not have a platform because perhaps it was brick and mortar earlier or face-to-face and suddenly it's not, and they don't have the tools. We have a turnkey tool and we're offering it free. So it's really, we want to be part of the assistance of the community to help connect people to each other and facilitate conversations. So today, again, it's about want to be productive to getting stuff done. Suddenly being at home when boundaries between life and work go away can seem liberating in short bursts, but it's a disaster for getting things done in the long term sometimes. How do we cut through the chaos and space for productivity? And this applies in many ways, like for many people who go to the office and now you're at home. You don't have the structure of your office room, your lunch hour, or you're a little too close to your logger. You know, it's so easy to day drink, you know, or something as you're used to working at home, but now your family is at home or kids are at home. And all of a sudden, as my business partner says, she goes, my kids think I'm a restaurant. It's like I have hours. So a lot of our normal structure that we're used to has just kind of gone a little bit nuts. So what is it that we can do to pull ourselves back? Or what are great tools to think about how we can make sense of all this? So that is what we are talking about today. So let's get started. All right. And with now, Andrea, I turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Meta. Thanks for asking me or talking to me about this and then giving me an opportunity to talk to other people, JUARA's people, about it. I have been finding, because I talk to my clients, I generally do 4 to 10 hours of Zoom a day right now. And everybody pretty much says the same thing who's working from home. And the people who are working from home, it is a different routine. It is a different rhythm. And it takes a bit to get that rhythm in sync. So tonight what I want to talk about is not just getting the rhythm in sync, but getting our heads in sync so that you can create a rhythm that works for you. One of the ways that I think about that is most of us don't have a lot of difference in our heads between being productive and being effective. So one of the things I want to talk about tonight is that difference, because I think that can help people be more effective, which then impacts their productivity. So rather than just go to being more productive, there are a lot of resources out there about how to just do things. But I don't want to talk about just doing things. I want to talk about doing things that produce the results or have the impact that you want, or at least leave you satisfied that you accomplished something in the day that was worth the time you spent on it. So was that what you were looking for, or are you thinking about anything else?
You know what? That is what I'm looking for, but what I would like to know is what the studio audience thinks. So we're going to launch our first poll. So we're going to ask you, what attracted you to this webinar? Because I'm curious. All right, you guys, I hope you see a poll on your screen. The last webinar, some people saw it, some people didn't. I think there's an internet delay. But if you do see, there is a poll. What attracted you to this webinar? Please vote in. And I see the numbers coming in. I like the ticker. All right, we're going to close this in 5 seconds. In 5. For those of you who haven't decided yet. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. This is how the audience. Here you go. You got 25% saying I'm busy but not getting much done. 8% can't get myself motivated. 17% I'm good but always interested in learning to be more effective. 50% I'm getting some stuff done but I have a lot of distractions that get in the way. And 8% love you. I love JUARA and would jump on anything or something they offer. I just said anything versus something, but wishful thinking. All right. So.
All right, good. So we know that at least half of you are feeling like you're doing okay, but wow, you're dealing with a lot of distraction. And there is almost no one who's not. If you live by yourself, possibly you're not dealing with as much distraction, but most people, even those who are by themselves, find themselves distracted because their routine is interrupted. They're not used to not getting up and talking to their colleagues at lunchtime, or being able to, just go to the restaurant at the downstairs of their building and get something to eat and to kind of break up their day. So you find that you could be more distracted because you haven't created a pathway to break up your day in a way that allows you to focus when you're focused and then take a break when you need to take a break. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We can't necessarily, there are people who will tell you, do this, this, and this, and that will eliminate the distractions. And maybe that's true under normal times. But right now, if you've got kids at home or you're homeschooling and you're all there in the same space all day long, you're not going to eliminate that distraction. So we got to figure out, how can you put something together that actually supports you and allows you to be distracted when you're distracted. So we're not going to talk about how to eliminate your distractions. I do not talk about that with regard to people's children. Right? I'm a grandmother, so I definitely don't talk that way. So Meta, is it okay if I share my slides?
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll do that. There we go. Okay, so when I'm talking about, I labeled this high performance, but the truth is right now we might just need performance. It's all right if you're not worried about high performance right now. If you just need to have better performance with regard to those distractions, or you just really want to find out how can I level up? I'm doing okay, but I want to level up. So what I want to do is give you a couple of definitions first. Now, I'll give you this one and then we're going to talk about it for a little bit. So what actually is productivity? So this is a long technical definition, a measure of the efficiency of a person, machine, factory, system, etc., in converting inputs into useful outputs. That's the main thing to remember, but here's the rest of it. Productivity is computed by dividing average output per period by the total costs incurred or resources consumed in that period. All right, here's why I left the whole definition on here. Because mostly people have a different definition in their head of what productivity is. Productivity generally gets collapsed with effectiveness. So, but really all productivity is efficiency. How many inputs get you how many outputs? And the quality of the outputs doesn't so much matter here. It's mostly input to output ratio. Okay, so now when you think about wanting to be more productive, generally what people mean is they want to be able to get more stuff done. Would you say that's true for you, Meta, or what do you think when you think about it?
I think so. Like I measure getting stuff done as stuff that I've accomplished, but productivity in this sense, you're saying it's just more like being busy. I'm doing the do. I'm taking the action. Right. And then I somehow think magically results happen.
Exactly. And sometimes results do happen. You type an email, the email gets sent. That's an input and an output. Now, if you get a response, that's an even better output, depending on if you wanted one or not, right? So input is type the email, click send. Output might be response back, or it might be you completed the activity by simply sending the email. Input could be, sorry, go ahead.
Their productivity is just actually doing the do, doing the action, whether it's efficient or not. It's like, I'm just, like I say, I'm gonna, I'm writing a book. I'm working on my book. I'm typing. I think I'm doing stuff related to it, but it's not really whether I got stuff done. It's just that I'm doing the do.
Right. And the output could be number of words that you added to the document by the time you were done. So the input is time spent typing in the book. Output is number of words or number of new photos you put in. I know you've got pictures in your book, right? So that's input and output. Now, if you stop and just think for a moment, was that really, not necessarily you, Meta, but all of us who are on here, was that what you were thinking when you were thinking about productivity? Mostly it's not. We don't think of productivity as mechanistic as it is. So that's why I don't necessarily talk with people about being more productive. There are some really good resources out there, by the way, if what you need is better input, like you need to do more inputs. And just a recommendation I'll make, because I think he's great and his book is really easy and good to use, is David Allen. And his book, he's probably got more than one, but the one I really like for just being able to create more inputs is called Getting Things Done. Really simple, Getting Things Done, David Allen. So if what you really need is getting more stuff done, definitely read his book. He will give you every tip and trick you need for email, how to set up your office, how to respond to people, etc. I mean, it's really a very useful text book for that. It's really almost like a workbook. At least for me, it was. All right. Is that a question, Meta? Should we answer?
Yes, there is a poll. Should I launch that poll on the productivity scale?
Yeah, you could. I was going to do it the other way, but let's do it now.
Okay.
So what I want you to do on the poll is to rate yourself, and this is a scale, although the way the polls work, it just doesn't look like a scale. It just looks like, numbers all the way down. So consider that the very first item on the poll is the lowest, and the last item on the poll is the highest you'd be rating yourself if you were putting yourself on a graph. Okay, so just with regard to productivity, not talking about effectiveness yet, just productivity.
All right, so I'm launching the poll, and it's very specific. It says rate yourself on the scale of productivity. Not doing much of anything, and remember the number. That's number 2. 4 is busy, but I feel I haven't accomplished much. 5, busy, but could have done more. 6, busy enough, but satisfied at day's end. 8, end every day having delivered everything on my list. I'm reading it out loud because it seems like some people can't actually see the poll.
I can't see the poll either.
How fun Zoom stuff. Let me relaunch this poll and try again because the first one share.
And tell me if I just need to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, you want to? Yeah, let's stop sharing the screen. And then this way.
There it is.
There you guys.
That was the difficulty.
Okay, so I guess polls and can you guys see it now? There's numbers coming in, so I'm going to assume people can see it now. Yay! Yeah, so Andrea, it seems like if I guess slides get in the way of any other action.
No problem. I'll just take them down whenever we have a poll.
So, all right. So closing 3, 2. Oh, more. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and pull.
And just remember your number, the number of the one that you put on.
2 is not doing much here. I'll share the results. Just remember your number. So a lot of people are busy but could have done more. Busy enough, so satisfied at day's end. Okay, so we've got a good crew out here. 15% at busy, but I haven't felt like I accomplished much, and not 2 for not doing much of anything. Remember your number because I'm going to stop sharing.
I love that 23% are busy enough but feel satisfied. That's great.
Yep, especially for nowadays. That's like, I'm happy.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to share my screen again, and then we're going to talk about effectiveness. So here's the definition of effectiveness. Effectiveness is the capability of producing a desired result or the ability to produce desired output. When something is deemed effective, it means it has an intended or expected outcome or produces a deep, vivid impression. Now you can hear productivity and effectiveness are completely different things. But almost always when we are talking about productivity, what we really mean is effectiveness. Doing the stuff that had the intended or expected outcome. So, sometimes when you write, if you do a to-do list or a top priority list at the beginning of your day or beginning of your week, sometimes you'll actually write what the to-dos are, like, well, my top priority is I need to call the bank to make sure that thing with my account is handled. That's a to-do. If you put outcomes down, you might say, an outcome I'm committed to for this week is that the bank reverse the charges that they put on my account that were in error. Now you can hear those are 2 different things, right? So one of the things I would offer is that when you set up your day or your week, you don't write down your to-dos as the top priorities. You can have a to-do list. I have a to-do list. There's no problem with that. But what you want to be focused on is what outcomes do you want to produce? Because sometimes, remember, inputs, outputs for productivity. So you might have the input, but not have the outcome that you wanted. So you feel busy, but not effective. When you write what you want to have happen as an outcome, you might see different actions to take, different inputs that would give you the outcome versus just doing all of your to-dos. This might sound really simple, but this is actually a very profound way of thinking completely different than how many of us think about how we set up our day, particularly when you want to be more productive and or effective. So inputs and outputs. If what you put down is an outcome, you are likely to have different activities that you'd see to produce the outcome than if you just put down the to-do, which may not produce your outcome. So as an example, I have I have a client that they have a gentleman who's working there who's very high ranking, who has mental health issues, but he's very high ranking. And so this has been a real concern for them because the guy will say things to people on the staff, accuse him of stealing his things. I mean, it's been a very toxic place. And what my client had been saying was, well, you know, what I need to do is I just need to sit down and talk with him. Okay, you can hear that's a to-do. But that isn't ultimately what he wants as an outcome, is simply to talk to the guy. He really would like the guy to work from home. So guess what? The virus made that happen. I mean, so he got the outcome he needed. But one of the things that we saw was that before everybody was on work from home, what he said was, as soon as we changed it to the outcome, he goes, wow, I don't know how to get him to work from home. So I put him in touch with a woman who's a psychologist who knows what this particular condition is the man is dealing with. And they were able to talk to each other. And she was able to give him some suggestions that will produce the outcome, which is not sit down and have a conversation with the gentleman. Right? So you can hear that when you write things as an outcome instead of as a to-do, you are going to have a different experience at the end of the day. Also, if you put too many outcomes down for what you're going to accomplish in a day, you are not likely to make that happen. So all of the productivity experts suggest this too, is no more than 3 top priorities in a day. And those priorities are outcomes. Does that make sense, Meta? Does that?
Yeah, I think it makes, that's the, is that the getting stuff done part? That's
Yes.
the achieving it versus doing a lot of things and then getting stuff done.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's do another poll. I'm going to stop share and then let's do a poll about the effectiveness part. We just did one on productivity. Remember your number from that. And Meta's going to do one on where you'd say you land if you were graphing out your effectiveness.
All right, I've launched the poll. Can you guys see it? So we're 1-to-1. One yes, one no. It says rate yourself on the scale for your effectiveness. Let me know if no. Okay, so there's some answers coming in, so I'm going to assume it's a yes. So remember, there's numbers. All right, if somebody cannot see, just say it in the chat room, but otherwise I'll say that you guys can see. People are taking longer to think about this one because I think, you know, you're right, Andrea, it's not, they are usually clumped together. To separate the two to two different things is interesting because now I can think about how I can influence, wind down one side versus the other as to what is productivity and effectiveness. All right, we're closing this poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, here's the results. Share. All right. All right, so getting a lot done, a small amount, getting a lot done, but none of it matters. Most people, they get a good amount done and sometimes produce good results. Okay. And 18% with have leisure time and am able to deliver on my intentions.
Oh, that's really great, you guys. Congratulations on that.
Okay.
I mean, even getting a good amount done and sometimes producing results is a great, some people would beg for that result. So good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, so what I want you to think about then is look at what number you gave yourself, 2, 4, 5, 6, or 8 on the productivity, and what number you just gave yourself on the effectiveness. And let's just quick look at a little graph. Hang on a second, I'll share my screen again.
This is where we see where we map? Where
Yeah,
we rank?
exactly. Just look at that. Exactly. Okay. So, no good productivity effectiveness speaker would be good without a little four top quadrant thing. All right. So just plot yourself in your mind. Where would you land depending on, productivity is on the vertical axis and effectiveness and impact is on the horizontal. So where would you find yourself? Just put that in the chat, kind of like where do you find yourself in the high productivity, low effectiveness, high productivity, high effectiveness? By the way, none of these are necessarily bad because it really depends on what's going on in your life right now as to which one you ought to be in.
Yeah, so no judgment here.
Yeah, not at all.
So what is 5 and 5, Andrea?
5 and 5, right in the middle. So you've got moments of high productivity, moments of high effectiveness, and moments of low productivity and moments of low effectiveness.
So I think I'm kind of like I'll just use me for example. I think sometimes just because of so many things going on, I'm somewhere between I'm like a 4, but I'm on the productivity, but I'm a 6. I feel like I get a lot of stuff done. Like at the end of the day, I can go down a checklist, but my goodness, during the day, I feel like where like I'm all over the place. I mean, is that what 4 and 6 looks like?
Well, 4 and 6 can mean that the things that you're working on, you're pretty expert at. Because the more mastery you have in a subject, the less inputs you have to have outputs. When you first start learning something, this is kind of an interesting ratio here, but when you're first learning something, it's like 10 inputs to every 1 output. Like, so it's a lot of work for a little result, a lot of work for a little result. And then the more masterful you get, the number of inputs goes down, or the ratio gets more balanced, right? Number of inputs goes down towards the number of outputs. And at some point, you've got 1 input and 10 outputs when you have a certain level of mastery.
It's kind of like driving. I remember the first time I was driving, it was every single, I had to think, I had to just everything. How I was holding the wheel, how I was breathing, was I turning right? Am I going to hit something? And now it's like I can drive from A to B and then like forget how I even pulled it off and parked, which is kind of scary because I'm so masterful at it. No, have a
Yes.
question. I have a couple of questions. So, oh, so interesting. So, a high productivity, high effectiveness, both work from home. I wave and wane. Yeah,
Mhm.
you could see that.
Well, and I just saw somebody ask about, is it better to be effective or productive? It depends on what you're doing, but most of the time it's going to be better to be effective, making the impact you want. But that is not a blanket answer because some things just simply need productivity.
Mhm.
Maybe you need to feed your children, but it does not have to be haute cuisine. Right? So maybe you just need to be productive with how many sandwiches you have to make today. And they do not have to be the best sandwiches you've ever made, right? If the kids get fed, then you've got enough effectiveness for however much work you put into it. So that would be a time where you don't have to be have super high effectiveness. For things that are really important in a bigger picture, in the big picture, of course, you want your children to eat healthy food, and that may mean that you have to spend a little bit more time to be more effective at them eating healthy food. So that bigger picture might need your effectiveness, not your productivity. But sometimes in this focused smaller picture, productivity is the right way to go. Most of the time, you'll always hear me respond, higher effectiveness is, if you had to choose productivity or effectiveness, I'd choose effectiveness.
But sometimes if you can't be effective, you just have to be sufficiently productive. How
Right.
would you suggest that we actually start thinking about in the context of trade-offs? If we don't have, as we're talking about like right now, the environment that's around us, whether internally we're just not used to all the time we have, or externally everything is on top of us, so we have a lot more noise. How would you suggest one goes about thinking about where those trade-offs come into play? Like when productivity
Yeah.
is more important than effectiveness, or effectiveness and productivity.
Mhm.
Like if you're a professional working at home or anything.
Right. So most people right now are going for, at least the people I'm speaking with, are going for productivity. If I can just click the button to say done or finished or send, I'm in better shape than if I've really done the very best job I could do. But not every job is useful for that. You know, like that would not be good in my business. If I just went, okay, I've had my 10 calls today. You know, I got that productivity done. But if those calls weren't effective, then that could ruin my business, right? So for me, I would look at not doing 10 calls in a day just to be productive. I would look at what's going to allow me to be the most effective. And that might mean that I have to say, no, I block my schedule so that I don't get calls scheduled back to back to back to back, right? Which sometimes happens. That way I can be much more effective. My daughter-in-law, who actually shares a property with me, she owns her own marketing business, and she's got 3 small children, well, 2 small, 1 not so small child at home. So she's got an 11-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And her husband is a medical first responder. So when he goes for a 12-hour shift, and she's still trying to run her business, manage all the kids' schoolwork, plus keep them entertained, or have them get themselves entertained during that time. Here's how she's been managing that works for her. She leaves these blocks of time that she knows are the times that the kids are most going to be antsy or need her or want to chat or talk or get busy. And she does not block time during that time. Then, like today, we share a swimming pool between us. So all the kids came over and got in the pool. And she came with them and did not try to work during that time. I mean, it would have been crazy for her to try and be on the phone, which she could have done, but it would not have worked. She would not have been effective with her clients that way. So she's changed her schedule so that she can be productive. And what that means is she's now working on the weekends. Because if her husband's home on the weekend, she will schedule calls on the weekends if that works for her clients. That's a way where you look at what really has to be done today, not just the things that I would normally do if I were working or if my kids weren't home, if I didn't have that. What needs to be done today, given the environment I currently find myself in? And then look at how do you schedule a day that includes maybe you need to stop at 3 p.m. and have a glass of wine because that's what you need to get through your day. Well, then put that in your calendar. Create space in your environment deliberately. Don't just hope it's all going to turn out by the end of the day, because mostly it does not. Does that address kind of what you were asking, Meta, or were you?
Yeah. It does, because it's kind of like you can't just try to do a little bit of everything normally and achieve the same thing. It's kind of like picking out what maximizes your effectiveness in the products where you can be productive. So a couple of comments have mentioned, so it's kind of like quality versus quantity. I mean, is that the gist of it? Several people have mentioned that.
It really is, because if you want to be satisfied at the end of the day, then what you want is quality. Mm-hmm. If you have a high productivity, but it doesn't have the quality you want, and you've got to be the judge of the quality. We can't do that. And, your boss really shouldn't be either if you've got a boss you're responding to. Are you satisfied with the quality? If you're satisfied with the quality, even if you're not satisfied with the quantity, you are going to feel better. And this is even a little bit of brain science here. So when you do something that turns out like you're happy, like, okay, that might only be 85% of what I thought I could do, but wow, that looks good, right? When that happens, your brain gives you a little dopamine hit. That's the happy hit. When you get a dopamine hit, it translates over into serotonin, another brain chemical. But the cool thing, so dopamine makes you feel good. Serotonin makes you want to do again the thing that made you feel good. So you create a really great, what they call a virtuous circle, right? So the accomplishment makes you feel really, now, if you accomplish a whole bunch of stuff and everything gets checked off your list, but you don't feel good about the quality of any of it, you aren't going to get the dopamine hit. If you accomplish a lot and you feel good about the quality of what you accomplished, great. So it's not that you can't accomplish as much. It just means make sure you put the quality in, because the satisfaction you get from doing whatever you call a good job gives you the brain chemicals that you need. And those brain chemicals are super important to having tomorrow be at least as good as today, if not better.
And yes, and dopamine hits. We could all use that.
Everybody needs a dopamine hit, man.
So, and there's something, Kelly made a comment. I wish I could somehow have this chat function
No, I can read it, so I'm getting it. And
okay.
Kelly, I totally get what you're saying here. Cleaning your patio and making it a beautiful workspace. So you put this quality time, not quality output was what you got. So you have this beautiful space that you're completely satisfied with. You got the dopamine hit, baby. Like that's the thing you want.
So so Kelly was talking to, because I just realized only you and I can see this, that she spent an hour cleaning the patio and making it a beautiful space for myself just before I started working. I gave myself that as a gift. And that you told yourself that it was going to make yourself better, and it did. And I totally understand that. It's like me and my time for my morning pour over. If it's not me, I hope my housemate did it for me, because taking that time makes it better. There is a comment that I'd like to hear you speak to, which is the other way. At work, I have a zillion interruptions, yet I get more done than I do when I'm at home. I think isolation makes me get into my head too much.
Oh, great question. Yeah, this does happen, right? So if you're not doing this, you might be, but if you're not doing this, really start off the morning by creating a couple of things for yourself. One is, these are some questions I use for myself and I put them in my journal every day. One is, who will I be today? So I just set myself up. What's the frame I'm going to have for myself during the day? Lots of days I put focused and effective. I happen to like those. And sometimes if I know I'm going to be distracted, that reminds me, right? And I have it in my iPad. So I just have that open and I just click the thing every time it disappears. I click it so I can see what I said. That's one thing. And then creating what are your top 3 priorities? Again, outcomes. And then setting a timer. This is something I got from the David Allen book, but I also saw it someplace else. It's called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is an Italian word for tomato. The whole reason was because the guy who created it had a timer in his kitchen that was a tomato. So he called it the Pomodoro technique. That is the whole reason for that name. But what you do is you set your timer for 25 minutes. You promise yourself that you're going to work on whatever it is you're going to work on for that 25 minutes. And you say, no, I can work without being distracted for 25 minutes. I can make that happen. The timer dings. You do not keep working, no matter, even if you're in the best thought you've had on the whole project, you get up from your chair and you walk around your house, you go get a snack, you go to the bathroom, you go outside if it's nice, but you take a 5-minute break. That allows your mind to do whatever it's going to do. And then you're training your mind to just focus, and you only have to focus, you beautiful mind, for 25 minutes, and then you get a break again. It's like giving your mind a little cookie. The break is the cookie. And you only do 3 of those. So you don't have to do that many, but don't do more than that, because then your brain gets too tired. So just do 3 of the 25-minute timers and 5 minutes each time. And then at the end of that set of 3 25 minutes, you stop and go do something else.
I like that.
That is a way to, because I won't tell you that there's a trick that I could tell you and it'll completely handle your mind. There's things you can do that'll help, but nothing fully handle. And as people who've been meditating for 20 years will tell you, the mind just keeps on doing what it's doing. But by the way, that is another thing that can help train the mind is meditation. And the studies have shown that even 3 minutes a day of meditation will change the chemistry of the brain. Takes a little bit longer if you're only doing 3 minutes, but it still works. The main point about making that work is to do it at the same time every day. But that also helps you practice breathing, sitting, and just letting what's on your mind go. Like floating down a stream, you just let what's in your mind go into the stream and go down. And then the next thing comes up, you put it in the stream. The next thing comes up, you put it in the stream. And that's a technique for meditation that can also help with that problem. But you aren't the only one who has that.
Okay.
Meta, just actually one more thing about that. I think that is really, because what I was just saying is could be true anytime, but let's just put it in the context of the virus for a minute. So one of the things that I've been finding for myself and my clients is that we have to be gentle with ourselves right now. We are in an environment in the US and in many other countries. Some countries are kind of moving past, like they've had their really bad time and they're in a different space. But for most of us, that's not true. And we are very impacted by our environment. Our environment even sometimes dictates what we will and will not do. And I mean environment, not just the physical environment, your computer in front of you, the room you're sitting in, anything that will impact you, but the whole environment of what we're all talking about. Like you could consider that the number of conversations we're having per day about the virus. And if you think about, if you watch the news or listen to the news or read the news, there's almost nothing in the news besides the virus. And we are ingesting that. It's like we're eating it. And we've got that massive conversation is in us, in our head, in our heart. We might be worried about it. We might not be worried, but maybe physically we're finding that we're pacing or we're having to get up and down more often. So one of the things about being in this particular time is that we need to be gentle with however our bodies and our minds and our hearts are responding. So we're not trying to eliminate any of the things that are happening. So what I would really recommend is to create a practice of observation. Observe what's happening with yourself. If you find it useful, write it down. Don't judge it. Don't try and get rid of it. Don't try and stop it. Just observe. Oh, today I notice I'm like, my chest feels really tight. No, I don't have the virus. I'm just worried. And if you can do that, give yourself just that space, you will find that you're more productive and you're more effective. And there's nothing wrong with being gentle right now.
Very, very true indeed, Andrea.
And then it looks like, what do you do if you set 3 effectiveness goals and the Pomodoro technique and don't accomplish one of the 3? Do you just keep trying? So this is what I do. If I don't try to do 3 different things in the Pomodoro. If I have 3 things, then I might do, I'll say, this is the one thing that's really important, and I'll just do the 25 minutes if it only takes 25 minutes. If it takes 15, I have 10 minutes to read gossip about the celebrities or something. I don't know. Usually I go read articles on brain science because I'm so interested in it. But just do the one thing. And then if you want to use the Pomodoro technique, then wait several hours before you try it on the second thing. But if you try to do all 3, you're kind of trying to trick the system a little bit. And I understand why you want to be productive, but it isn't so useful. So I would just say, okay, I'm just this thing is about a 20-minute thing. I'll do the Pomodoro for 25 minutes. I'll do the 25 minutes and then I'll take a 5-minute break. And then maybe 5 hours later, you can come back and do one more. But that's what I would do. And notice, if you did try it with 3 and the Pomodoro technique and you only got one of the 3 done, then really look and see what was it that had only one of 3 get done? Did I get distracted anyway? Did I underestimate how long these things were going to take me? That happens a lot, by the way. We totally underestimate how long something's going to take. Then schedule a different Pomodoro session for yourself to accomplish whatever you didn't get done.
Huh.
All right. Other any Meta, is there any other questions or anything that you want to take?
You mean before moving on, it says, has the Pomodoro been applied to things that require involve other people? I'll let you decide when you want to answer the questions in context of what you have coming up next. So.
Good. Well, that one I'll answer now because it's not going to come up in the next stuff. Yes, meetings where people, now you got to have agreement on all parties. So it doesn't work if other people don't agree, but you set the timer for, now you might tweak it. You might say 25 minutes isn't enough, but we'll have our meeting done in 40 minutes. Then set the timer for the 40 minutes, but don't schedule things back to back to back. That tends to not work because things always bleed over. People need to go to the bathroom. They need to get a snack. I mean, they need to attend to their children or go for a quick walk. So don't schedule things back to back to back. And if you do use the Pomodoro technique, look and see how much time is needed. If it's over an hour, don't use the timer. It needs to be under an hour. Most people, our brain function for really deep work or really intense focus work, this is not true of everybody, but is about 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can expand that, but you'd have to practice to be able to do deep focused work for longer than that.
So it's like sprints, but don't hang out in that space for too long or it starts the diminishing returns. So sprints, Give yourself a mental cookie, take a break as needed with other people. That's realistic. Go back into the sprint. Got it. Okay.
And here's a little fun fact. Speaking of sprints, let's talk about napping for sprints too. So here's the actual research. Who knew somebody was going to do research on this, but they did. So if you need, like in this time, like you just need a break, napping is good. Napping is actually really restorative to your brain, but only under certain conditions. And this is for the average person. You might not find this to be true for yourself, but for the average person, the optimum time for a nap is from the time you lay down to the time your timer dings, 18 minutes.
Even if you're not asleep. Right? Yeah, even if it takes you 10 minutes to fall asleep.
Exactly. And the reason for that is that if you go over that amount of time, the brain doesn't, it takes the brain longer to click back into gear. And laying down for that amount of time will allow you to actually get some of the restorative, like letting the chemicals download or get out of your brain system, et cetera. But yeah, so there's a really great book you might enjoy that has all these great fun little facts in them. It's called When by Daniel Pink. And that's how I found out about the napping thing for 18 minutes. But everybody who's tried it, I'm not a napper, but everybody I know who's tried it says it really works. So that's another little tip for sprinting. All right, well, let me just give you the last slide here. And I'm going to go to this one. So when you're looking at, okay, how do I have high performance? And in high performance, the context we're using is high effectiveness and therefore satisfaction. So these are just some tips. This is not an exhaustive list. Create clear intentions with goals for the week or the month. Right now, given the environment we're in, I totally recommend no longer than a week because things change daily. So don't make plans for a month from now if we really don't know how things are going to be. I use daily, by the way. I use weekly, I use yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily. And it doesn't take me very long to do all of that. Then you break it down. So if you haven't broken yours down into daily, be sure you do that. Then you've got to articulate what actions must I take to fulfill those intentions. So before the story I told you about the guy who had the gentleman with the mental health issue, he was just articulating the action. He hadn't articulated the intention. But as soon as we articulated the intention, he could see different actions he could take that maybe could produce the result when the ones he'd been taking were not delivering the result. So first, don't write your actions first. Always let the actions flow from the way you've stated your intentions. Then design effective practices as the foundation for your actions and intentions. This one can be a bit confusing, so let me tell you what I mean here. Practices, the difference between actions and practices. Practices are things that you do regularly. So 3 times a week, you do 30 minutes of cardio. That's a practice. Calling the bank to straighten out your account is an action. You don't do that 3 times a week, hopefully. Go grocery shopping to pick up the ingredients I need for this special meal I want to make. That's an action. Grocery shop every Friday morning, starting at 10 a.m. That would be a practice. So you can hear there's a regularity and a consistency to the practices, and those support the actions. Now, here's why this makes so much difference, is if you're just taking actions all day long, you don't have the foundation you need of what are the regular things I need to be doing that take care of me, take care of my intentions, maybe take care of my family or my housemates. But the practices are absolutely critical. Most people, when we really start looking at it, just for the physical, mental, emotional well-being, not for their work, they will have somewhere between 8 and 15 practices. That might seem like a lot, but that is the average. And these are not super overachievers who are doing this. Okay, so designing effective practices, and then find and commit to a structure that supports you. And here's what I mean by that. A buddy system, like where you call somebody and say, hey, these are my intentions. Here's the actions I'm going to take. And having to report back to your buddy makes all the difference in the world in the structure. Like having a gym membership in normal times is a structure. You get charged for it every month. That you get charged for it every month helps most of us get to the gym. That's a structure. So a structure is a container that holds your intentions, your actions, and your actions and practices that gets you to actually helps you do the stuff you want to do. And lastly, do a review and a reset at the end of at least every month. Right now, I'm recommending weekly. So questions about that, or Meta, I don't know where we are on time, so I don't know if we have time for many questions, but whatever you think we should do next.
I think we have time for one question. We have 6 minutes, but I do have a question for everyone because we have one last poll.
Oh, of course.
So let me launch the poll. This poll, that's a lot. So thank you for all that tidbits, or just for everything. Now let's ask everyone here, for you, as you reflect upon what you have starting tomorrow and the day after, what was the impact of this webinar? Your 3 options: wasn't for me, or I see an action I could take to be more effective, or I see at least one action to take and I'll take it before I go to bed tomorrow night. So taking this material and putting into action, or results for effectiveness. Am I saying all the words right? No.
Outcomes, but close enough.
Outcomes. No. All right. So closing the poll in 3, 2, and some people are not voting, but that's okay because it takes time to think about it. But most of you have. So, and 1, unless you can't see the poll. All right, end poll. Right. So it looks like 30% of you could see an action that you could take to be more effective, and 70% sees one action to take and that you'll take before tomorrow night. We'll email you and find out if you really did it or not. No, I'm kidding.
Well, here's why it's important, and partly why we did that poll, is that remember the little dopamine serotonin circle. So if you take an action that you saw to take, or you create a new practice, or you even the action of creating outcomes, you will give your brain that little dopamine cookie, and it will make more difference to you doing something different on Friday than if you don't. So that's why we asked that question. So I totally recommend you take one action, even if you could take it tonight, but for sure before you go to bed tomorrow.
Great. So thank you, Andrea. Up next, what we have Thursday, April 16th. Help, I can't stop stress eating. We've got Anna Broom, certified health coach. This one is also, it's another, I like this topic because I can relate to it. So it's in the stress of this COVID-19 crisis and having hunker down, stress eating and binging. How do we cope, and how do we work around that? And how do we maintain healthy eating habits and sense of well-being? And especially now, since I don't know in your cities, but in New York, we're told like shop once, don't go to the grocery store for 2 weeks. So we have limitations on us. So connect with us, please. Follow us. This is all ways of contacting us. And this is also Andrea's information. So check it out, communityjourneys.com. And again, please take advantage of this amazing, amazing offer. Thank you, Andrea. That's super generous of getting the free coaching bill for all you attendees. With that note, it is exactly 9 p.m. Eastern time, and thank you everyone for coming. I hope this was very helpful and very productive, and we hope to see you on next time. We hope you see you next time on future webinars, and yes, have a great night. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Always a pleasure.
Good night, everyone.